Колеги, ми продовжуємо.
Dear colleagues, we continue our work at the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. Our next topic is the security situation in Ukraine and the activities of the OSCE SMM. And I'm giving the floor to Principal Deputy Chief Monitor, Mr. Alexander Hook. Mr. Hook, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you today from Vasilivka, just north of Donetsk city. It's the fourth day of a 5-day visit and trip to eastern Ukraine. We have already been to Shastye, Stanitsa Luhansk, Luhansk city, Solote, Pervomaisk, Soledar, Donetsk city, Avdiivka, Marinka, Petmanove, Kruta Balka. Later today, we will go to Mariupol and from there monitor the situation in Pavlopil and Pikuzi tomorrow. We have seen many things and spoken to many people. Like with any SMM patrol, our findings are reflected in the OSCE SMM daily reports available for anyone on our website. One overriding impression stays with me from the visit thus far. It seems there are two Donbasses. There's the Donbass in which a ceasefire has been agreed, and not only agreed, but adhered to. Listen to the representatives of the sides. They will claim that their side is strictly adhering to the fire. Donbass in which the sides have agreed to withdraw heavy weapons beyond agreed with sides. Sides claim they have done so. There is a Donbass in which the sides have agreed to disengage forces and hardware from free areas. There is a Donbass in which the sides have agreed to mark mines, in which the OSCE SMM has safe and unhindered access to all areas, including to areas along the Russian Federation-Ukraine border. The sides claim they afford this access. Not only do they afford such access, they claim to ensure safe access. And there is Donbass, in which the sides engage in meaningful dialogue to resolve issues and ultimately bring about normalization. Dear friends, there is another Donbass, the one in which real people live, the one I have this week, the one indeed our monitors see every day, every week. In this Donbass, the OSCE SMM has recorded 322 ceasefire violations since the beginning of the year. Over 26,000 of these ceasefire violations were caused by heavy weapons that are supposed to be withdrawn. Indeed, since the beginning of the year, we have spotted almost 3,500 weapons within all lines, 3,000 weapons that the sides agreed to withdraw beyond withdrawal lines. In this Donbass, there are real people who pay the price. Since the year, the OSCE SMM has confirmed and the injury of 327 civilians. All of them, 308 in total, real people. One of those killed last week was a man damaged by shelling. He, as well as two of Horlivka, a 47-year-old man was killed when he was caught up in shelling on 8 October. He was the father of 3 children. Our monitors last week also noted armed men and soldiers along with hardware in the Stanica Luhanska disengagement area and the presence of mines in all 3 disengagement areas. In fact, they noted mines all along the contact line in the real Donbass last week. This week, I saw them for myself. We were in Shastia, attempting to cross the bridge into non-government controlled areas when we were faced with lines of anti-mines on the bridge. And when my colleagues and I go to Pikusi tomorrow, we expect to see more. We know they are there. On Wednesday, the OSCE SMM unmanned aerial vehicle spotted 11 anti-tank mines 2 kilometers southwest of the village on the main road to Mariupol. As well as blocking the access to Mariupol, the mines prevent access to neighboring Vodiane too. The same day, we spotted anti-tank mines closer to the village, this time laid by the so-called PR. People in Pikusi have been living in this real Donbass since December 2015, when the sides in the wider area started pushing their positions forward, closer and closer to one another, and in the process tightening what is effectively a noose around the village. Mines like these and fortified positions now mean that the few residents in the village are up between the lines, held hostage to the security requirement of armed men and soldiers whose priorities often do not match those of the local population. In the real Donbass, as seen by the people of Pikusi, lives and livelihoods are being destroyed and families and communities torn apart as to leave, mostly leaving behind the old and those with no place to go. They have just left, not because trenches and checkpoints restrict their movement or their livelihoods, but also because those same trench points have resulted in them homes being shelled on a regular basis as the sites are too close to one another. These images showing individual houses on Akhmatovai Street on 5 August, 10th August, following the shelling on the street, illustrate damage in the space of just over 5 days. This image explains why. On the same street, there is a trench and a checkpoint. Positions in residential areas mean only one thing: civilian casualties and destruction of civilian homes and infrastructure. Those placing them there and those firing on them share a heavy moral responsibility. Dear friends, we have over 500 unarmed civilian monitors in the real Donbass. Every day, all day, they patrol all across Donbass, at least to all parts where they're not prevented from going to. They monitor at night using in locations from 17 SMM premises in eastern Ukraine. They collect facts, they monitor and report on reality. The real Donbass. They are not blind, but often the sites deliberately try to blind them. Last week, for example, on the evening of 4th October, a member of the so-called LPR used a laser to disable an SMM camera of Stanica Luhanska. As you can see, the camera was actively unable to see anything for almost 5 hours, prompting the question, what is to hide? What is the reality the so-called LPR does not want the world to see? The so-called LPR has suggested look into the incident. Reality is sometimes not easy to face, but if this conflict is solved, I believe there are people of goodwill on both sides of the contact line trying their best to bring this madness to an end. But the dynamics on the ground, the reality, undermine their efforts and best intentions. Armed men facing off against one another, sometimes just 100 meters apart, with heavy weapons at their disposal, inevitably results in degeneration and violence. Violence is contagious, and no amount of goodwill can stop it. The only thing that can is the removal of the things underpinning it, namely the presence of weapons and the proximity of the sites. Also required is meaningful dialogue. One of the pillars of our mandate is in fact dialogue facilitation. No amount of facilitation work when the sites themselves are reluctant to meaningful dialogue engage with one another. Trenches in the field, or in the case of Pikuzi in Akhmatoyov Street, are just a reflection of the entrenched position at political level. One of the reasons I came to Eastern Ukraine this week was to meet, among others, certain senior members of the armed formations. They refused to meet, a refusal that says much about their commitment to dialogue. Dear friends, winter is coming, and there is no gas to heat homes in many places along the contact line, including in Pikuzi. It's impossible, or at least extremely dangerous, to collect firewood as mines are littered, unseen, across fields and forests. Our monitors were in Novo-Alexandrivka in Luhansk region last week. Like Pikuzi, it too is ringed by trenches, landmines and fortified positions, with people there stuck between the lines, unable to move, unable to access or basic necessities of life. Or the surrounding woods traditionally supplied them with firewood. Humanitarian aid organizations cannot reach them. 3 residents told our monitors they desperately needed coal for the winter. There and elsewhere along the contact line, there is little or no money. This conflict has brought the industry to a standstill. And, as we just saw in Pikuzi, homes are being destroyed. This is the real Donbass. Everywhere my colleagues and I have been this week, real people on both sides of the contact line this conflict can only be ended through dialogue. They know years that it cannot be ended by more conflict. The people living here and the hundreds of thousands of people who have been displaced from here are the real Donbass. They must be listened to. There must be dialogue. There must be peace. They have one message for people in positions of power. Time to get real. People in eastern Ukraine are tired of promises. They want real, concrete, immediate actions. The list of actions is long, but to start, sides must open new entry-exit checkpoints on the contact line, namely at Solote and Shastia. They must repair Stanica Luhanska Bridge, repair broken gas pipes in Marinka, reconnect the gas supply to people in Pikuzi and Krutapalka, and open roads between Novoazovsk and Mariupol, between Pikuzi and Mariupol, and many more. These actions must be taken now, before the ground freezes and the long cold winter sets in. Otherwise, it will be too late for repair crews and for real people in Donbas. Thank you.
Дякуємо, колеги. В когось є запитання?
Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? So we don't have any questions, so we'll finish today's press briefing. Thank you very much.